Dave Cook will be attending.
Okay. I see we're on the air. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Here.
Counselor Lavin?
I am here.
Counselor Peeler? Counselor Grimaldi?
Here.
Counselor Gilat?
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Here.
Counselor Morocco? Counselor Whitfield? Mayor Valentino?
Here. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a proclamation remembering Frank Cottaro. And it just seems like it wasn't too long ago that we were proclaiming Frank for 50 years working for the city. So this is a little bit sad for me. Whereas the city of Geneva recently lost a valuable member and friend on July 16, 2024, with the death of Frank E. Cottaro, who faithfully and conscientiously served the city of Geneva and its residents for over 50 years, with the Department of Public Works, first as a laborer, then motor equipment operator, and finally as a heavy equipment operator. And whereas Frank's years of public service will be remembered by exemplary dedication for the best interest of the community, as he worked constantly for the betterment of the public works system, which has contributed to the safety and comfort of this community. And whereas Frank's dedication and commitment will continue to inspire us all, he will be remembered as a well-respected individual who was devoted to his profession and colleagues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Steve Valentino, in my capacity as mayor of the city of Geneva, and on behalf of the entire city council, do hereby issue this proclamation in memory of heavy equipment operator Frank E. Cottaro to celebrate his legacy and extend our sincere appreciation to his family for supporting him throughout his tenure with the City of Geneva Department of Public Works. And next we have first presentation, Q2 financial reports by our comptroller, Stephanie.
Good evening. I handed out the Q2 report to everybody before the start of the meeting, so you should have a colored copy of it. I'm on. Can you not hear it?
No. Move it a little closer.
Better? Okay. So I did a little bit of a different report from what I did for Q1, trying to provide a summary page along with the detail on the backside of the summary page of the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. Breaking out the revenue and expenses, I don't have any concerns of where we are right now. The revenue side of things is sitting at roughly 64%, but that's because of the timing of when our tax collection usually occurs. So the majority of that has been collected already this year. Everything else is pretty much tracking where we think, where we had anticipated it for budget 2024. Same thing with expenses, minus a few budget amendments that we've already brought forward to council. Everything else is tracking in line with where we anticipated it being for the general fund. The water fund and sewer fund, I feel like I should knock on wood. Things are going smoothly right now. We don't have any anticipation of things, any unanticipated expenses, but obviously, as we have done in the past, should anything arise, we would bring that forward to City Council. Keeping in mind for water and sewer, while the report does run through June 30th, our Q2 water billing goes out July 1st, so you won't see those funds realized until basically your third quarter report. Any questions?
Stephanie, one thing we forgot last time is our bond rating. So you did meet with the bond company. If you want to just let them know how we did there.
So we met with the bond company. Well, we had our bond rating call back in April. Everything went well. They were positive. Pleased to hear with improvements that are going on with the city, as well as the financial position of the city, and there was no change to our bond rating.
Council Levin.
Thanks for what is clearly an improved over the last time, but I still think there's some key obvious things like that we were asking for, or at least that I was asking for like overtime. Some report on how we're doing department by department at this point that we break out. As we pointed out, we had, I think, 25 or 26 people making more than 100 grand or costing more than 100 grand for this, their city positions, several making double their salaries and stuff. And it's hard to track that through this format here so that we can ask for that kind of variance to see what kind of process is there for overtime.
I can break that out.
Right. And it also would be, given how voluminous this is, to have it a few days beforehand so we'd have time to actually dig in on specific questions on variance that we'd like some explanation from, that we can actually send in beforehand. But this is getting closer to something that the council can start getting familiar with the expression of the budget and the spending through the year. And
You can
allow
always
us-
feel free to email me after you've had a chance to look at it too. I'm happy to respond to council for any questions.
You've always been responsive. I just, a basic dashboard of the key issues that we'd be looking at, given both our tax situation and what's clearly an issue with the city with, the work is done, and I don't begrudge anybody being paid for the work, but when you start seeing a $60,000 cop making 140, I'd like to be able to ask, how is that happening? What's our system for controlling overtime and for managing the costs of operating the city, to see where the process, that kind of granular engagement from the board, not to question
No, that's
the
fine.
management,
So-
but to
Some of the
understand-
overtime with the police department in particular is due to staffing levels, so they have minimum staffing level requirements, so there's not necessarily a way that we could control the overtime, but I can absolutely include that as a breakout in the report.
And
I think for several people on this council, minimum staffing requirements determined by whom, managed by whom, controlled by whom, contracts, or?
So minimum staffing requirements, some of that has to do with safety. Some of it also has to do, so overtime is a complex issue. And one of the things that we've been talking about, and the comptroller and I will be doing, is doing a general overview of the budget process for the community via YouTube so people can reflect back on that. Another one that we're looking at is working with both the police chief, fire chief, and potentially department director of public works to talk about overtime and why we have overtime expenses in each of these departments. So there are lots of reasons for overtime. For police, even our events may cause some overtime, and we anticipate that. In addition, if there is an incident at an end of shift, you are mandated to stay on for that shift, because it would not make a lot of sense to say, all right, sorry, my time's up. You continue with your incident and I'll be back. As well as, so they're often overtime is safety, health and safety related, similar with DPW, water main breaks, things like that. So the regulation of overtime, I think we can discuss much further, but it's a fairly complex issue on why we have overtime. And then when we talk about minimum staffing levels, it's around the safety and security. Often we'll report to the Department of Justice report for the police department, but there's other key metrics there as well.
I understand that, but there also isn't, as we, as a council, look at spending as a city, there are other things other than the number that we have. I'm not trying to pick on the police or fire department specifically, but there are other management steps that can be taken or pursued to keep us in a different position at those times. Not easy issues, but heading into a desire to get taxes under control in this city, we have to look at the nuts and bolts of the operations and understand them, and the judgment of what safety is and who's saying what that is. And are there other agencies that we should be partnering with to take some of those pressures off at times. These things that we can at least get answers to. But I thank you for this work. And I will respond back with I think there's a simpler dashboard for the things that I think the majority of people here will
Yeah,
get them
if-
more familiar with the budget.
If there's something in particular that any council member is looking for, just feel free to email me and I'll be sure to include it on the Q3.
Right.
Great. Stephanie, just, I see there's $2 million in AIM fund that we're still waiting for. Timing of that, and then there's a little bit more of a gap of the federal and state funding. Just give me an idea when that timing comes
The
out.
AIM funding usually comes in mid to end of October timeframe, when the state is essentially reconciling their books. They send us the money, so.
Okay.
Is the sales tax is running way ahead, right?
We're roughly where we were last year at this time. We're pretty close on both of them.
And we're close to our projection. We had estimated that sales tax would continue to slightly increase, and we're close to that.
Well, the prices are up, so the sales tax would be up, but
We were at 2.5 in 2,510,000 in 2023 at this time, and we're at 2,525,000. So
Right.
we're up a little bit, but roughly where we were last year.
and that surplus as it occurs just goes into your regular surplus, or are you
No.
We-
isolating it now?
We aren't anticipating having a surplus because when we did the 2024 budget, we anticipated an increase in sales tax. So we're basically in line where we think sales tax is going to land for the year. So we already incorporated the surplus or the additional sales tax in the budget for 2024.
So that goes back to the budgeting. So when we project next year's budget, when we dive into that, we're going to look at the market. This week, we've not had a great day with that. But we'll project where we think sales tax may be, and then we'll put that into a revenue line before we create the tax levy. And so that's what we did with sales tax. And right now, I'll knock on wood, our projection seems to be serving us well because we're right in line with where we thought we would be.
But if you end up with 750,000 extra in sales tax, which could happen here still this year,
Yes, it could go, it depends on how it goes. So
There's two different options.
Yes.
So if we receive additional funding over what we estimated for 2024 budget, there's two different options. So we could theoretically have that additional funding left over at the end of the year. Once we finalized and closed the books, that those funds would roll back into our general fund, our savings account, essentially. The other option is because we anticipated pulling some of our funding, some of our revenue line is actually pulling from our reserve account. Rather than pulling from our reserve account to turn around and put back into our reserve account, we could just not make the pull from 2024 that we anticipated in the reserve account that was roughly 600,000.
but those are deviations from the exact plan of the budget as passed by the council. You end up with
Right, so-
unbudgeted revenue, and that's where I think there's room for discussion.
It would come in front of council based upon what the direction that the council wanted to take. It could be that once we close out the books, so theoretically, February, March of next year, we would have an anticipated where we were gonna land, and then this council could direct it to go back into the general fund, or we could look at things where we think they're gonna land in November, December timeframe, and if we realize that we're ahead of schedule on what we anticipated for sales tax, I could come forward to the council and say, based upon an additional 500,000 on the sales tax line, I'd like to make an amendment to the budget and not pull 500,000 from the reserve account. But it would be a decision from council for the deviation from the budget.
Great. Thank you.
Counselor Peeler.
Yeah, just remind us again, what's the expenses that are, or expense that's being pulled from the reserve?
So it's not a specific expense line. It's basically what we need to essentially balance the budget to keep the tax rate where we wanted it on the budget last year after we had already anticipated all of our other additional revenue lines. So the AIM funding, everything else coming in, there was an additional 600,000 roughly that we put in the budget that we anticipated pulling from the savings, from the reserve account.
And
So it's not like I pulled $20,000 from the reserve account to purchase a specific item.
What we do with that, though, is any money that is pulled from the reserves will not offset salary or anything else because it's your savings account, so
Right.
it's one-time funding.
Right.
Took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, we need to be cautious when we have extra revenues like that, one-time expenses, because they very possibly could not be reoccurring revenues. Any other questions?
Well, just one, please. And it's, I appreciate the new report, but I was just getting used to the Q1 report.
So the Q2 report on the second, third, fourth, and fifth page, it is the Q1 report. I just pulled the Q1 report for 23 and 24 and put them side by side for you.
One question.
Sure.
In the Q1 report, there's one column, it's called fiscal activity, and I haven't had a chance to sort out what that means. I know what period activity means. It means that in that quarter one, X number of dollars, we're either plus or minus. But what is fiscal activity? I
That's-
don't know what that column is.
It's essentially year to date. So
Oh, okay.
So it's the entire year. So your fiscal year. So it's showing you what we've spent year to date.
Okay, so that means in this case, the unfavorable is minus 9,100, which represents 0.11% of the total. Okay, done. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Stephanie. Next is a presentation on the water sewer capacity overview presented by our Department of Public Works Director, Mr. Venuti.
Thank you, Mayor, City Councilors, good evening, everyone. Understand there's been several questions and concerns regarding regional growth and development. I appreciate the opportunity to provide basic overview of the city's domestic water and sanitary wastewater capacity. We'll start off with some simple terms. Where does our clean water come from? Our water source is Seneca Lake. We draw what is classified as surface water through intake pipes installed a few hundred feet offshore into our water treatment plant that is located in the town of Geneva on Lockland Road. Basically, raw water is filtered through very old but reliable slow sand filter system, as well as a very modern microfilter system. So we have two forms of filtration. Chlorine, fluoride, and corrosion control measures are then introduced to the filtered water, which is pumped from the plant to our reservoir, which is located up on Preemption Road, just south of 5 and 20, above the Little League ball fields. We follow strict guidelines in order to ensure that tap water is safe to drink. The New York State Department of Health, along with our friends at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, prescribe significant regulations which limit the number of certain contaminants in our water that can be provided by public water systems. I'm proud to announce that last year, your tap water met all state drinking water health standards, and we did not violate any maximum contaminant level. Some water facts and figures. DPW staff responsible for a distribution system that in 2023 serviced approximately 12,700 city and 2,000 town of Geneva residents. We have roughly 4,300 water service connections tapped off of more than 82 miles of distribution piping. Small numbers, we've got about 750 water valves and 530 fire hydrants. Our water treatment plant is currently rated to produce up to 5 million gallons per day. Similarly, our reservoir can hold and store 5 million gallons, and that gravity feeds and supplies the system. 2023, we produced 592 million gallons. I'm going to use whole numbers to make it easy.
Please do.
Which is about an average of 1.6 million gallons per day. Our largest single day production was 2.1 million, and we delivered over 501 million gallons to customers. If you're following along, the 592 to the 501, we used 38 million gallons at the plant, and we have calculated an unaccounted loss of 58.8 million, which is roughly 9.9%, attributed to reasons such as disinfection flushing of our mains. That's when we come around and run our fire hydrants to clean them out. Fighting fires and leakages caused by water main breaks. Regulation is to be less than 10%, and we're right at 10%. Today, we have the capacity to process and seek customers to sell additional water should the opportunity arise. Where does our wastewater go? Same answer, Seneca Lake. However, let me please explain how it gets there. We collect and process sanitary sewage, which is normal water carried household and toilet wastes from residences, businesses, commercial, industrial users. Sewage is received from the city of Geneva as well as towns of Geneva and Fayette. This is called our influent water that makes its way to our Marsh Creek plant, which is located on Dorn Avenue. Similar to the water regulations, in order to ensure that our treated water is safe to discharge, to protect the environment and the public health, the State Department of Conservation, and again, our friends of the United States EPA, prescribe significant regulations which dictate how we are to operate our systems. In very simple terms, we have 5 basic principles of wastewater treatment. Physical, which where we remove solid particles. Chemical, where we remove some contaminants. Biological, if you've been on our plant tour, these are our famous bugs we love to talk about. That removes organic matter. Tertiary, where we have a high level of filtration to remove solids that are left over. And of course, disinfection, where any remaining pathogens and bacteria are destroyed to ensure the water is safe to release into the environment. We operate under a SPEEDIES permit. That's a state pollution discharge elimination system that we annually apply for. That allows us to discharge currently up to 6 million gallons per day. We do not have combined storm and sanitary systems. However, we do experience water intrusions during storm events. DPW maintains roughly 84 miles of sanitary distribution piping, thousands of manhole structures, roughly 4,300 laterals to approximately 4,100 city customers and 200 town customers. Besides Marsh Creek, we have several pumping stations. Our plant was designed in 1972 to operate at 4 million gallons with a peak hydraulic capacity at 10 million gallons a day. Roughly 10 to 12 years ago, a large investment was made by the city to modify our old activated sludge process, which added anaerobic digesters and a new final tank, allowing us to bump up to the 6 million current gallons a day. Flows above 6 million, we have experienced 32 million in one day, are diverted to a high flow facility, which treats the very high flows associated with inflow and infiltration. You've heard me discuss that before during storm events. The high flow treatment flows using a high flocculated, what's a good word, flocculated.
You say it again?
I don't know. It's easier for me to spell.
Hey, Flock.
Please don't say it.
Nick is going to be mad at me. Flocculated settling process before disinfection action is taken and we discharge into Seneca Lake. That is our effluent. Heavy rain events and periodic snow melts increase our flows, which trigger the high flow operation. That happens several times a year. It's been as little as 8 since I've been here to currently I think we're at number 12 for the year. You always hear me indicate 2 capacity components when talking about our wastewater, liquids and solids. The present sludge or solids digestion process is our autothermophilic aerobic digestion, or ATAD. We are capable of handling 5,000 pounds of solids per day. Over the past few years, the average amounts of dry solids has been around 4,700 pounds, which is roughly 94% of our capacity. That leaves us little reserve for room for growth and development. However, that's the main factor that we are thankfully moving forward with the ATAD expansion project. We have room for sanitary flow liquids in our system. as our study that was commissioned in 2020 indicated average flows to just around 3.2 million gallons. Our neighboring towns include town of Geneva, which takes sanitary waste from town of Seneca. Currently, they're contracted with us for a yearly limit not to exceed 159 million gallons, at which point a different rate kicks in. In 2023, we received just 92 million from the town of Geneva, which is roughly 14% of the total volume that we processed at the plant, which is over 702 million gallons. We meter these flows at 3 locations: Lyons Road, Preemption, and Snell, where we have meter pits, and also the town of Waterloo, which takes Fayette's, and they average about 2.1 million gallons of flow. We have a meter down on Border City Road, which equates to about 3% of our intake. Having large amounts of capacity does not help the city with I&I issues. And as we discuss and learn from the towns or ourselves about proposed development projects, you know, it's easier for us in the process to request engineer calculations for their projected flows from their proposals. We review and share this data with the DEC, and I meet with the towns regularly to discuss and update anticipated developments. This started just a couple years back, and I have to say that the numbers have dropped off significantly over the past 2 years of what was proposed and anticipated to be built. With the financial situation and interest rates the way they are, an awful lot of projects have been mothballed. If you're really good with math and followed my figures, I said that we produced 591 million gallons of water, but processed 702 million gallons of wastewater. That's inflow and infiltration. Stormwater and groundwater enter our system as much as 15% of our processing costs. Where we look to grow in the future, both regionally and locally, is not only I&I, but prevention and mitigation of it, and also concerns that we expect from significant industrial users and generators of high-strength waste. We're very proud of our facilities. We thank you and the past leadership for continued support and investments in them. If you've not had an opportunity to visit the plants, please, when time allows, reach out to me and we'll schedule a visit, meet with our talented staff, and see firsthand more what this department does. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to ask. And I would also encourage everyone to please see, if they're interested in more of our annual water quality report is posted typically in March on our city webpage, of course, but hard copies are available at the Geneva Housing Authority, the Geneva City Library, and also here at City Hall.
Remind me what's the end result, please, of the ATAD? Is it compost? Is it soil?
We are permitted through the New York State DEC to be one of the first, and only a handful in New York State, of a producer of a Class A biosolid, which means it is applicable to spread as a fertilizer
Okay,
and mix with the compost.
thank you. That's so that ATAD does 2 things: keeps solid waste out of the landfill and helps us treat our waste.
100%. The
That's great.
cost savings of not taking sludge
Right.
from the old way to the landfill and paying those tipping fees has definitely been reduced.
Excellent. And my second question is, since groundwater or flood water, whatever, rainwater, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, since that infiltration is upwards of 15% on average, I'm curious to know what it is in actual, like, because it must happen during events. It's not really 15% running all the time.
I have daily numbers and weekly numbers, and
Yeah.
it's I would be glad to share them with you to go through them all.
I wouldn't mind it if you want to set up a
significant.
meeting.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, because I live in kind of that kind of area, right, where we get water. So secondly, the question,
doesn't go in
the
your
real
system.
question of that is will it be cheaper to fix the groundwater infiltration versus expand the capacity of the system?
The last study that I saw the city partook in indicated that there was not just one fix, Counselor,
That's
but
right.
yet
I remember
numerous locations. So what we are currently doing when we do a capital project is we are taking the opportunity to study the sewer mains themselves, and if we can, we will line them. If they need to be replaced, we ask that they be replaced. Keep in mind, a project such as Lafayette, which is the last one that was finished, may have been just shy of 3/4 of a mile, 84 miles of pipe. So, in perspective, that's a significant cost. It can be done. I wish we could do them all, believe me when I tell you, especially the water mains, but the sewer especially.
Yeah.
So, we're working on it. You'll see crews on Castle Street this week. They've already started. I've heard some disruption of people's commute, which is good. That means we're out on the road. And, you know, we found a break today. So that's, when we look at them, it's, all of our utilities are underground. It's hard to see without getting out there and getting to them.
Right. Well, good job. Keep hammering on it. And a quarter mile is really a drop in the ocean. No pun intended, but it's good. We got to. This is on the tip of a lot of people's minds.
Certainly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Lavin.
Mr. Vernodi, always impressed by the day nonstop work that you guys do. I'm
Thank you.
curious as to, you don't have a lot of give between your capacity and you overflow sometimes. So when the town comes up with a project, let's say our Rochester Regional Medical Building coming up, or the desire to have condos out at the country club, the houses that seem to be poised to be built along Carter Road right now, there's some discussions that go on between your department and the town. You mentioned that you have a limit, and you don't cut them off if they get to the limit, you just charge them more above that. So they have access to more of the capacity of our plant than we agree. So when we're looking at development, things like this, can you talk me through the process by which you hear about a project and how they move ahead? Let's say, for example, on the Rochester Regional thing they're racing ahead with now. They must have some assurance that the sewer and water that they need to go ahead with that project is going to happen before we've heard about it down here, and and before any vote of council, that capacity is going to be made available to them.
Certainly. First, I'd like to address, we do not overflow, and if we do overflow, we are highly regulated with restrictions on how to report such things with sanitary overflow. Stormwater and sanitary
Sure.
water are different. So just to be clear, if anybody's listening that's not here in the room, talking about the Country Club potential project and the Carter Road projects, which are numerous. The town of Geneva staff and I have worked together to create a form that when a project is brought to their attention, they reach out to me to let me know, and we go through a process of looking at our hydraulic analysis for both water, if it's going to be impacted by our domestic water, and then the engineers, we ask them to provide us a detailed calculation of total build-out based in gallons per day, what the usage may or may not be. Something like the Country Club project with, I can't remember the amount of condos on it, but was significantly less than, let's say, a 300-unit PUD that was planned on the, north of Gambia at Carter Road. So each single-family home has a factor that is an engineer calculation that'll determine how many gallons per day a single-family residence should put out. And with that factor, we use that to kind of calculate total volumes of what's anticipated. Currently domestic residential flows will not impact us at all. The high-strength industrial user stuff is what we're concerned about currently. So we take that information that the town brings forward. I meet with the wastewater plant operators, we meet with our DEC officials, and we discuss capacities and reserves, and we discuss if we can, green light or give the go-ahead to do the project.
Not to interrupt, but there's the impact on operating the plant, but there's the policy issue of whether or not the asset owned and operated by the city at their expense is allowing for development in the town that does not contribute to, beyond the cost of water and sewer, to the tax situation between the two players. We're essentially spawning development in the town for properties that do not contribute to the city's property tax situation. That's a city asset. It's not just to operate the plant, which you're good at, but it's also to ask this council whether or not the capacity needs to be reserved for development in the city under the current situation.
So if I may, I think there's a couple things on this that we've started the discussions on. And one you'll see in next month when we talk budget is looking at a rate study with the municipalities and how we set our rates, because we can determine, we've done it in one way, that's not the only way. And so what we can determine is the overall capacity that we're willing to do and what the rate is for that. There's ways to do it per gallon. There's lots of different ways, and I think having someone from the outside come in and look at our system and then help us determine that and determine those arrangements and agreements. This is not something that hasn't been done elsewhere, and I think you have to also have the cost-benefit analysis of development. We talked about sales tax revenue. Sales tax revenue, I would love everyone to shop in the city of Geneva. Please shop in the city of Geneva. I will say that a million times. If you're not shopping here, shop in Ontario County. Don't cross the borders. Buy your things here, because that's all the same sales tax revenue. The difference, obviously, being if you're shopping here, you're supporting hopefully someone local that's living here or, is paying those property taxes or rents here. But I think that what you're talking about, again, is a very complex issue on how we handle this. And we need to not only do that. Right now we are doing, Joe, help me with the study we're doing.
Headworks.
The
Headworks loading study.
To understand what the loading capacity is and how we move that forward. So all of those things combined allows us to have a more informed conversation about what capacity are we giving and who are we giving that capacity to. Also, Joe mentioned this is very regulated. And when the EPA or state DOH or anyone is involved and they say, your neighboring community needs this resource and we're only allowing them to use your resource, we have to help figure that out. And that's where we're faced with some of these challenges, especially we have beautiful lakes. There's been a lot of legislation on septic systems near the lakes because we want to protect them. And so when you have a resource like our wastewater treatment plant, that's a resource that we have to think as a regional resource as well.
But there's a policy issue away from the environmental issues about how the city uses its asset. In negotiations with the town over, let's say, combined fire services, is there leverage to them to say, listen, we will be open and honest with you about potential development plans you have, or we're going to reserve that capacity for things that are done in the city because you're taking advantage of city services without contributing to it. That's a legitimate political discussion and a policy issue that should come before this council, and they should be fully aware of the capacity, not, no offense to Joe, but not a decision made because he has the capacity to use the plant there. Now, DEC might say, no, we want you to do that, and some future funding might be affected, but we're not hearing that from them yet.
So the caution is it is not just our plant, because we already have the funds involved from all of those other entities. When we do, the ATAD project is being shared between the town of Waterloo, town of Geneva, and the city of Geneva.
It is our plant. Legally, it's our plant. And they can fight, there may be legal issues about it, but it's our plant.
Okay.
And when they bring a project that's going to increase their sales tax in the town, and they use the sales tax in the town to defer the cost of some of the water that they're charging to their residents. And that's an equity and a justice thing between the two populations that are sometimes right across the street from each other. We have to, if we have to look at our ability to push some of these issues down the road beyond
Absolutely.
just, can we take the water flow? The other question I had, Joe, is can you tell where the inflow comes from when it exceeds our ability? I know that a lot of water falls up on top of the hill and makes its way down to us, but
Not always, however, with the 4 metering sites that we have, 3 for the town, 1 for Waterloo, we do have weekly calculations that are computed, with the electronics. So I can tell you during rain events that significant I&I happens that come through the meter. Where exactly does it enter the system is a little more challenging.
does that adjust their charges for
Their-
those events?
Counselor, their current agreement allows for 159 million gallons, and they are currently at 92 million gallons. So it's hard to, as part of negotiations, that could be something that's
Well, the
discussed.
agreements have run out, and we're heading down the road towards new ones, right? That's why I'm being a little pushy about this, is that the status quo where your department is essentially pushing policy that the rest of us have not really been part of, needs to be visited.
So, if I may, Joe, I just want to be clear that the policy of those agreements was from the previous councils.
Right.
So that is the case with this as well. The policy will be set after we have all of the information and research to give you the knowledge to make those decisions, and it will involve our legal partners to ensure that we're having that conversation. So all of us are doing it for all of the reasons that we can look at the data, we can share that, we can look at what this looks like. It's not Joe's decision or my decision. It is until a new agreement is in place, those are standing agreements. And in order to get to our next agreements, because there's already been some disputing of these current agreements, we want to make sure we have the headwork study, which was step 1 this year, and then next year is the tax rate study, and combining them all together to have an agreement that clearly gives you the path and the options forward.
And I'm just pointing out that that figure 192, was it, Joe? 100 is something now, it's no longer binding on us. And if they assume in the town that they're going to put up 120 new condos and do it with city water and sewer without perhaps forming a planned urban development that could share the property tax increases by that, I think we have to debate that as we're looking for ways to rein in what's an untenable tax situation in the city of Geneva. And frankly, an equity issue with the spending that's going on and the savings in the town that are pouring over the cost of services into the city. These are real issues, and I think we have to have the full information, not just of the operation of the plant and our capacity to do it, but also the justice for the way that taxes and services are paid for in this community, the way it's constructed now.
I think to add to that, what might be a helpful, Councilor Lavin, is to understand that the town and other entities pay 50% of the capital improvements. So when we talk about their cost structure, I think including the cost structure of what they expend in capital will be interesting to see also.
I understand that they pay. Do they pay enough?
Well, you called it our plant, but they're spending 50%. They're paying for 50% of capital improvements.
Ask the lawyers. It's our plant. We're
Well,
responsible
I'm not
for it.
saying,
and that man
I'm not
runs
saying
it.
it's not. I'm saying the city of Geneva was, if it was isolated to that plant, would incur 50% more of the capital cost.
Maybe. They don't want their sewer
There's
cut
no
off.
maybe. I mean, if we didn't have an agreement where they paid 50% of capital,
If they tried
we
to,
won't get it.
if they at this point said, we're going to go our own way, then they're going to have to spend millions to build their own plants and own water. And that's not tenable for them either. They're not in a great position on this.
state and federal government won't allow that. Based on the last proceedings we were talking about a sewer district. That's where it would head. It wouldn't head into an individual town sewer system.
I'm sure there's complex negotiations and fairness that's
I
still
don't
at play here.
disagree at all. Yeah.
Right.
Councilor Gilat and then Councilor Brennan.
I forgot my question, to be honest with you. we need a time clock or something. Anyway, Joe, my concern or question is a couple things. A lot of water breaks, we all know that. I mean, I get dinged with my firemen there all the time. And I know a lot of guys on the crews. How's morale holding up, and how do you adjust? How do you plan for, they're gonna keep breaking. Do you plan for overtime based on history of breakage, or how do you manage that?
Well, I'll defer to Stephanie after I speak a little bit about it. We do plan for water breaks. We have a couple line items in our budget codes for materials and supplies, and also for street maintenance items that happen once a water break happens, the street usually falls apart. Our staff, as far as morale goes, in my opinion, when we have an emergency, we all respond, whether it's 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, with equal vigor. This weekend, we responded to one on Sunday morning. This week, so far, we've had 3 additional, and today's Wednesday, so they happen. It's part of business. It's part of running a water maintenance operation. It's also probably more prevalent with a system such as the Carter Road break last week, 1909 pipe. It only lasts so long, right? There's fires that happen. Maybe a valve gets shut or opened too quickly. Well, maybe we're out flushing the hydrant and then just rile up the system. So things happen. So in our budget, we have both salaries and then overtime, and we do look at years prior, and we do our best to estimate. We can make overtime 0 and look really good to the comptroller. However, it wouldn't be feasible because something's gonna go. We just don't know when.
Councilor Brennan?
Well, I only wanted to add to Councilor Lavin's point, which is not so much whether or not the capacities that we have control over are the subject, but the subject really is the growth in the town can always far exceed any growth that the city can have. We've recognized this before. I think this was part mentioned in our retreat with Ian Coyle at one point or another. But we all know that taxes are a never-ending topic among all Geneva City citizens. So I think it is part of a larger conversation that we should be having about going forward and whatever development the town is doing. Because I don't know what the legalities would be, but somebody does. And I don't know what the negotiations would be, but somebody does. And I don't know what these agreements, the new agreements, are going to be about. But I think, again, this is a much bigger picture, that this could be an episode to really take a hold of. Thank you.
Councilor Grimaldi?
I was just going to change it, Joe. Who are I have my voice is kind of weird today. Who are your guys that you're running their licenses for the water plant and sewer plant? Who's basically the chief at those? I know everybody's retired since I was here, so.
Oh, certainly. You want to know by names or like numbers? We have 4 staff at the water treatment plant, which do an incredible job.
Yeah.
3 of them are operators.
Are they 1A
Fully
operators
licensed.
still, or do they change that?
We're up to number 4s. We probably have one of the only crew
Okay,
of 4s
they
in the
switched it
state.
around. They must have switched it around.
Yes.
Because we used to always send all our water guys to school to get chief operator's license.
So they're the highest operators you can have now is the 4As.
Yeah. They can
We
do
have
any kind of
3.
plant.
We have 3 at the water plant with 1 trainee.
Okay.
And that comes with, you have to put in so much time before you're
Right.
allowed to exam. Our water maintenance staff has what's called a B operator's license.
Okay,
All of
used to
our
be a
staff
D.
are, right. So those folks also go through training and upkeep annually
Yeah.
to be
And
able
it's all
to
for distribution.
take care of
right?
distribution, exactly. At our wastewater plant, we have 8.5 people.
Yeah.
Because one is shared, our electrician position is shared between 2 departments. And in our field maintenance team, we have roughly 8 full-time. But I can say once again that they're dedicated, and when an emergency does happen, no matter what
Yeah.
it is, water or sewer, everyone will pitch in to make it come together.
I just figured it's important to know that these guys are out there and they do have to be licensed by the state. And
That's correct.
I don't know, I used to do that, so I know it takes a lot of work every year to get keep those licenses up.
And similar to what Counselor Levin was discussing or asking about staffing regulations, part of the EPA and DOH regulations do require a set amount of people based on the size of the facility.
Yep. Just thought it would be interesting to know, so, because a lot of people don't understand they have to be licensed.
Thank you.
And one point Joe did not make, but I think is important, he talked about his staff and how appreciative we are. One of our newest supervisors yesterday went through, well, a bunch of them went through a DOH audit, but during those 3 water main breaks, they were being audited as well. And so his first audit with 3 water main breaks, which is pretty tremendous and a very stressful day. So that team really does deserve a lot of credit for all the work that they've been putting in on all of these things, from nights and weekends with these water main breaks to all of the other things that they need to do to continue to make sure that we're protected and safe when it comes to good quality water and wastewater treatment.
Director Bernuti, I see the water, we're basically on a gallon per day, we're about at 25% capacity, so we've got room on the water side. Years ago, we had issues with zebra mussels. Is that still a concern? Do we still have challenges with zebra mussels in Seneca Lake?
So it is my understanding they still exist. I believe somehow they were brought in as ballast on a ship somewhere, and they've definitely decimated through the Finger Lakes. Our facility, the intake pipes that I mentioned that are out in the lake offshore, we have a chemical treatment system that has PVC piping run through the intake pipe out to a cribbing deck at the very end of the pipe that chemically treats to kill off the zebra mussels to allow them to not stick and clog up our intake pipes, in addition to getting through the system itself.
Okay. And on the sewer side, we're at capacity basically on any given day, but that's why we went out for our grant to do an expansion there, and we're looking forward hopefully to successfully landing that grant.
For the sewer side of the
Yes, for the sewer
ATAG?
side of things, yeah.
So we've received that grant. The
Right.
grant we're waiting on is actually on the water side.
Right.
Oh.
It's a, go ahead, Joe. I'm not gonna
There you
try.
go. Straighten down.
The acronym WIA, Water Infrastructure Improvement, whatever that stands for. They,
Act.
our wastewater grant for ATAD has been approved. That project currently is about roughly 75% designed, and we're looking forward to going out to bid here for 2025. The most recent grant we applied through WIA was for a granular activated carbon system for the water treatment facility to add a 3rd layer of filtration to help combat PFAS and forever chemical contaminants that we hear so much about in the news these days. We haven't heard how we fared in that application.
Thank you. Yeah, I think our challenge is we've gone up against a couple of things in my tenure on council, and what's been interesting is we went for a benefit assessment district some years ago, and the challenge there was we've been labeled as one of those communities that has a large amount of properties that are not on the tax rolls. That benefit assessment district that we tried to implement years ago ran into a large variety of opposition from the nonprofits, and we did not move forward with that. We've also had challenges with sewer and water agreements with surrounding municipalities, and we've been in the court systems. We've previous councils and previous staffs have worked diligently to try to get the best options. We've threatened to even raise prices even more on water and sewer to try to equal the playing ground. There are legal limitations. It's something that has been continually talked about in the city of Geneva, and it's been controversy that has landed in the court systems and put us in a position. So I am looking forward to the next round of negotiations, and I'm looking forward to that legal support to create any leverage we can, because I do agree that it is a resource that is very valuable, and we need to leverage that resource as best as possible. Any further questions for Joe?
Joe, I do have one more. Joe, when you were listing the number of customers in the town, you mentioned also that the town of Seneca comes to the town of Geneva. When you calculate the number of customers is the town of Seneca one customer in your calculations, or is it represent the number of people in the town of Seneca with their fragrant dump nearby that are also benefiting from our asset here? The number of houses?
I'll have to get back to you on that, how it's calculated. I do know that because town of Seneca is collected by town of Geneva, it comes to us. I don't know exactly how many properties in the town of Seneca that equates to. But
I suspect it's more than the number as you described early on when we look at who's actually.
More than the 200. The 200 are folks that we actually bill,
Right,
so yes.
right.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Joe. Next is the supervisor update, but I don't see any county supervisors in the audience, so I'll jump to the next one, which is consideration of the meeting minutes for July 10th, July 18th, and July 23rd, and I would like a motion.
So moved.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Lavin. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is public comment. First on my list is Chanel France with Blueprint Geneva update.
First and foremost, thank you so much for your time and attention. As stated, my name is Chanel France, and I'm here representing Blueprint Geneva. I'm the current board president. So Blueprint Geneva is a federally recognized 501c3 public charity, and it was formed in 2016. Blueprint Geneva works to pursue new concepts that focus on growing an interconnected and economically empowered community. I would like to take this opportunity to provide just a brief snapshot of some of our current projects and events. So our summer youth program kicked off about a month ago with 8 students from the city who are participating and being paid to do community improvement work for about 25 hours a week, and this will extend until August 16th. We are also providing meals every Sunday at our community kitchen, which is located at 143 Wadsworth Street. Hot meals can be picked up on Sundays from 2 to 4:30 p.m. or until we run out. Oopsies. So donations are appreciated but not required for the meal. We'll also deliver and bring meals to you. We just need that upfront communication. We are also always looking for volunteers to help with meal preparation and planning. So, and additionally, the kitchen is also a rentable kitchen space for small businesses. So if you are interested in volunteering or renting the kitchen space or have any questions, please send them to info@genevacommunitykitchen.org. We also have a community garden space, which is located on Crystal Street. And we have many fun things growing right now, including peppers, tomatoes, okra, garlic, green onions, and much more. So if you have a green thumb or are simply interested in helping out at our garden, please email james@blueprintgeneva.org. This is a community space as well, so those vegetables are available. So we are always looking for willing volunteers to keep plants watered, especially during these hot summer days. Finally, we are trying to integrate and bring more people to that Crystal Street community garden. So we hosted our first Yoga in the Garden event in early July, hosted and guided by yours truly, and we'll be offering a few more guided yoga sessions in the fall. So please connect with Blueprint Geneva on social media and stay up to date on many more exciting events and programs that we offer. Thank you.
Public comment.
Aye.
You can talk to her later.
I'll do it.
Next, I have Reverend Dr. Philip Fleming.
It's disrespectful.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I was here 3 months ago, and I brought to everyone's attention a 501c4 organization that I started in 2023, Hope and Success for the People. So I decided to give you a very brief update on that. It's connected now with a mental health private practice based out of Yonkers, New York. That's right outside the Bronx. Mindful Living. It will be the vehicle that will be used to bring peer support services into a mental health private practice, something that really has not been done before in the state of New York. So, Max Gutman and I are pretty much created this infrastructure from the ground up. Usually peer support services are being provided through, a clinic, maybe, a hospital, a mental health facility, stuff like that, but not in private practice. And I bring this up because this non-for-profit that's connected to Mindful Living will be serving the entire state of New York, not just Yonkers. And this will be an opportunity to, be a partnership with the peers and mental health agencies in this city and the Finger Lakes. In addition to the new partnership with Mindful Living, there's also been some new developments, like a radio station called the Peer Regional Network, and Live 365. You know what that is live streaming radio. You pay a license. I think it's $99. For $99, you get you pay for the licensing that you need to to stream musical content. But it's also a place where people can do submit podcast episodes. And this station is designed to give a voice to the peer community. Right now, there's a couple of podcasts related to how folks members of Fountain House, which is a clubhouse based in New York City, how they got through the COVID pandemic. And there's 9 episodes. So the documentaries, podcasts related to mental health and substance use recovery. So this is a unique project that Hope and Success for the People has undertaken. And I heard the last speaker, and I forgot your name already, I'm so sorry, Chanel. I was contemplating some space to rent as a kind of a base around here, so perhaps we can talk, we can exchange contact information and probably set up a meeting for that. And lastly, there's been a concern, at least was brought to my attention, about the number of opioid and fentanyl deaths and drug use in the county. And I'm not sure, what the support level is in this city for people who, are in recovery from substances or who are actually, going through addiction. That's very personal to me because I'm a recovery myself. And I understand that it's not easy staying in recovery, and when the supports are not there, it could cause things like relapse, or people would be so dismayed they can't find a way out of their addiction. They just it results in death and stuff. So I want the city council to keep in mind that the need for mental health and substance use services are a greater need now than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, and having a 501c4 like Hope and Success for the People, I think would be a partner, in this fight. Getting resources out there to people who are seeking them and needing them. And lastly, I was hoping sometime down the road that the boards and commissions in the city, that will kind of come up again. I heard in the past that they have served as an advisory capacity for the city council, and I haven't been hearing too much about it other than you guys are thinking about bringing it back. I think it's essential to have these boards and these committees for 2 reasons. One, it gets me and my fellow residents involved in the affairs of this city. It's good for community engagement to learn about how this city operates and how we can provide feedback and solutions to the problems that are plaguing us here. Because we do have good ideas. We just need a platform to be able to express that. And with that, thank you for your time.
Next, I have Catherine Price from the BID.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to give another bid update. It's a pleasure to see you all this evening. So I'm going to start by talking about the self-guided plant tour that I handed out before the meeting started. I know that you all remember the plaques that I brought in before that were funded by the LDC, the Local Development Corporation, to help encourage people to understand why we went with native plants both at the lakefront and in downtown. So this is a self-guided tour with numbers on the flower beds, and when you open it up, it shows you where all the plaques are located within each of the flower beds and landscaping beds, so that we can encourage people to walk around, take a look at all these plants, see how beautiful our downtown is, and then of course we have the QR code that links back to our website that gives additional information on all the plants. So I wanted to start with that because that's going to be one of the things that's featured at our Geneva Grows Native event. That's going to be this Saturday, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th. So the next 3 Saturdays in a row. We're collaborating with Cornell IPM, Cornell Cooperative Extension, City of Geneva, of course, Local 4-H, and On the Canals, which is a New York State canal program, to do an educational event. We'll be set up at the lakefront. We'll be doing walking tours, guiding people through the downtown, we're going to be doing this at the lakefront. We'll be set up at the pavilion. We'll be guiding people through the native plants there, teaching them what the plants are, and teaching them how to look for the beneficial insects that are living in our beautiful lakefront. We'll be doing an insect scavenger hunt that's led by Cornell IPM, and we have seeds, free seed giveaways that again have been generously provided for us by On the Canals. So those are going to be pollinator plants that are available for fall sowing, and we can teach you how to sow your own pollinator garden. And we have stickers, ones that say I'm a good bug for the kids, and little things where you can get your picture taken as a ladybug. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We do hope that you would come out. Do hope that you will come out this weekend and pop by the pavilion and check it out. Thank you.
Next, I have Catherine Slinning Haynes.
The night at the Catherines. So good evening. My name is Catherine Slining Haynes, and I live in Ward 1. I had originally planned on sharing with you about the number of positive responses I've heard from passersby while working down at the lakefront for Weeding Wednesday. Both Genevans and tourists express appreciation for our beautiful lakefront and the ability to walk along its shoreline. However, I'm going to leave that for another time, as something else seems more important to me. I didn't attend last month's council meeting in person due to the severe storm warnings. However, I watched online. I don't feel I have enough information regarding the position of Community Engagement Coordinator to have a considered opinion regarding the decision that was made last month. However, I did appreciate that Councillor Lavin acknowledged the need for council to provide staff with parameters within which to work, but not to micromanage. I also acknowledge that the mayor recognized the staff's work, and while it may be uncomfortable, it is important for councilors to recognize that not all citizens are going to be comfortable approaching them, as stated by Councillor Whitfield. There have been many changes at City Hall over the course of the past several years, in part due to the constraints related to COVID. What I heard coming from some councilors was that if there were shifts in staffing and or things weren't getting done, that somehow staff wasn't working hard enough. I understand that this council is very focused on holding the tax levy at current levels, but I'm concerned that what gets lost is the larger picture on how to move forward with a wider lens. Of course, what councilors are hearing about is flooded basements and the immediate concerns of citizens. These are immediate and serious problems. But what about setting ourselves up to be able to obtain infrastructure and other funding to address these problems long term? What Jackie Augustine said last meeting regarding the impact on grant writing and the ability for the city to back up its applications with demonstrated community and or city engagement is important. Lastly, I want to thank the city manager, the city planner, the comptroller, along with all the other city employees who carry out the business of the city of Geneva. I've been extremely impressed by their preparedness and professionalism at council meetings. I know that staff are present at many evening meetings and public events. I hope that council recognizes the value of our city staff and will make decisions in the future that support and uplift the work that they are doing for the city. Thank you.
Here, here.
Next, I have Cassie Snyder.
Hi. Hello, councilors and fellow Genevans. My name's Cassie J. Snyder. I'm a resident of Ward 2 and the owner of a small business. I'm here today to speak up about the elimination of the Community Engagement Coordinator position that had been worked into the budget for this year. As a business owner, I wanted to clarify some points about managing social media that some of our counselors who are not very active online or rely on Facebook as a sole platform might not understand. Each flyer or graphic posted to Facebook or Instagram likely took the poster about 30 minutes to an hour to make. That means that each time there's a job posting or DPW construction event or public concert at the lakefront, someone in City Hall had to move around what they were doing that actually was a part of their job description to make room for figuring out how to import photos into Canva or create a text box. The idea that council's okay with forcing the folks who work in City Hall to perform duties outside of what they were hired to do and at odd hours during emergencies seems exploitative and not in keeping with the values described in the comprehensive plan. In the last 5 years, nobody wants to work has been the rallying cry every time they are understaffed at a drive-thru or grocery store. The truth is that nobody wants to be worked to death anymore, and the inclusion of the Community Engagement Coordinator in last year's budget showed a thoughtfulness and forward-thinking mentality of the city manager that the city has lacked for a long time. To assume it is easy to create posts and to keep a community of this size informed on multiple ever-evolving social media platforms shows a major weakness in the thinking of this city council and a resistance to change that serves no one, especially the public. Last night, a friend and I were having a conversation about the decline of buffets and how once the landscape was dotted with ponderosas and sizzlers. I mentioned that my husband and I were planning a tentative road trip with two of our other friends to go to a 2-story buffet in Lancaster, Pennsylvania that I'd seen on TikTok. My friend remarked that he'd seen the same video, that the buffet looked incredible, but most importantly that Lancaster was killing it with a very effective social media campaign if we'd both seen it. Today, in thinking about what I was going to say when addressing council about what a bad move eliminating the community engagement coordinator position was, how it hurts locals and does nothing to promote tourism that many people rely on for jobs, it occurred to me just how sad it is that the city of Geneva is allowing itself to be eclipsed by the Amish when it comes to technology and staying relevant in social media. Let that sink in, and please reconsider reinstating this position to keep information widely accessible. Thank you.
Next, we have the city manager report.
Could I make a comment very brief?
Larry, yeah? Larry Campbell?
I didn't know I had to make a schedule, but
Yeah, there's a sign up at the beginning of the meeting, or we can do it online also too, Larry.
all right, in the future. But this won't take long. I rise to encourage council to put a wooden stake once and for all through the heart of the zombie proposal to go into the marina business. First, the city is not in the financial position to gamble on such an experiment. There are many other more important pressing community needs that need budget support, and that would be of benefit to far more Genevans than the tiny few that would use a marina. Second, there are already numerous marinas along the nearby lakefront and canal. Third, power boats would bring noise and water and air pollution to a public and wildlife green space that is truly the gem of Geneva and one of its greatest attractions for both Genevans and our tourist visitors. Don't kill the duck that laid the golden egg. Thank you. Larry Campbell, 366 Castle Street.
Back to our city manager report.
Okay, so it is budget time. Budget is in full force. The budget will be presented on Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. The comptroller and I have met with all the city departments and as well as the Business Improvement District to review all of their funding requests. We had instructed all departments to prepare departmental or organizational budgets without their fixed staffing costs, but with their program costs reflecting no more than 5% growth. After reviewing budgets and requests, the comptroller and I have now further reviewed those requests, and from here we are planning to prepare a budget that aligns with our goals of creating the lowest and most sustainable tax rate within the last 10 years, provides smart spending, increases our wise investments, and stabilizes our use of resources. The budget presentation will again have all the details of all of the things that our departments and others had requested that were or were not funded or recommended in that city manager's budget. At that time, council will have the opportunity to workshop the budget and to make it their own. Those workshops will occur every Wednesday following that budget presentation. Folks have asked about preparing for the budget. The 2025 budget book will look very similar to your 2024 budget book. There are going to be a few changes. One of the changes that will be a little different is last year we did incorporate current year work projects and where people are in those work projects. In 2025, we'll continue that, and then we'll also add 2 to 4 key metrics that the departments are currently tracking or will be tracking in 2025 related to departmental outcomes. Another update, double polls. We've received some calls about the double polls that are happening in different communities due to utility work. Unfortunately, utility polls is out of the city's hands. That does not mean that we are not regularly communicating both with the companies as well as the Public Service Commission. So how the polls work is each utility company has 120 days to move their equipment after the previous company removed their equipment. So for every pole that has 3, 4, 5 utilities on it, you get 120 days. We are continuing to reach out to the Public Service Commission. We encourage citizens, if you are having challenges with the double poles in your yards, please also reach out to the Public Service Commission to make sure, one, they are monitoring that 120 days and they're on top of it. Do you want me to take questions now? Councilor Peeler has one.
I have a small question.
Well, I would say just
I will save, I can remember it. I'll save it for my public comment if we want to have a discussion in the future.
We are partnering with Finger Lakes Community Action. Last week, PED submitted the CDBG housing application for 7 homes. The Finger Lakes Community Action actually earmarked $100,000 of their funding for energy assessments and weatherization in the community. And in addition to that, our total grant ask was $638,444. This is not a local match program. This is also a program we can continue to have. Our goal is to submit this program every year for at least the next 10 years, so we'll continue to increase the homes that can be served by that program once we receive that grant. I'm going to say once we received it and be very optimistic. Related to this, our application was accepted to declare us a pro-housing community and have that certification. We've had a few follow-up questions, but we anticipate that certification coming online. Also with Finger Lakes Community Action, they're going to submit a partnership application with the City of Geneva for a grant through New York State Division of Homes and Community Renewal. I share this because the grant is entitled Vacant Rental Improvement Program, and it's an attempt to address the current housing crisis in New York. We recently, Planning and Economic Development, did a housing survey with a couple of volunteers, one being a council member. They identified 1 and 2 family homes and then looked at how those homes meet different thresholds. Through that, we identified approximately 50 1 or 2 family vacant homes in the city. In the coming weeks, Finger Lakes Community Action will be reaching out to all of those property owners to gauge their interest in participating in this program if we get the funding award. The awards to property owners are for $50,000 or $75,000, and they would need to rent to moderately and low income households. The awards would allow the property owners to provide mold remediation, access, egress, roof replacement, foundation repair, HVAC, electric, framing of new walls, drywall, door replacements, anything to address code violations to get them to certified occupancy. So that will be going out. Finger Lakes Community Action is taking the lead on this, but it is in partnership with the city. I share that because the calls will definitely still come to the city, but we will be referring them back to Finger Lakes Community Action. Similar to what we did with the CDBG, they're gauging the interest so then they can go for the grant. GPD, Geneva Police Department, hosted their youth academy. We had 16 youth participate this summer. The academy started on July 15th and has convened every Monday and Friday through Friday, August 8th. Each week the students completed physical training by the lake, and then they participated in a variety of tours. They went to 911, the Sheriff's Department, the jail, Happy Tales, Troop E, the fire department, which the comptroller and I enjoyed a little bit of that, although the students challenged us to a bunch of things we did not do. Yeah, we weren't going. Yes. Yeah. They are concluding on Friday with a tour of the Ontario County Courthouse, and they're going to have a mock trial with the members of the DA, and then they'll have a graduation ceremony Monday evening. DPW has been busy with storm cleanup. We understand that there's still debris. It is a busy season for our DPW crews. They are milling and paving today. They have water main breaks. They will be around to pick up debris. If you're clearing your limbs blown down alongside or from the rear of your property, you need to bring them to the curb line. DPW won't be entering your property to get those things. Also, the Resource Recovery Park is located on Doran Ave. It's open to residents Wednesdays 7:30 to 3 and Saturdays 8 to noon, so people can bring their debris there. And thank you for your patience. There is potential for rain on Friday, so you'll see some messaging going out. There could be large impacts of that rain. Check your downspouts, check your basements, get ready for that. What else? Bid lakefront contractor. In our budget discussions, we talked about, with the bid, we discussed their current year operations and do some challenges in filling some of the vacancies. The bid has funding that was allocated to them that they can utilize to contract for additional work with landscaping and vegetation management at the lakefront. This is much in alignment with the work requested by the Green Committee and will be for the remainder of 2024. The bid and DPW are talking through what that contract looks like, and we'll finalize that agreement. It will be done through the bid, and we'll do that. The Community Outreach Beat the Heat Pop-Up Splash Park Pilot Program. My staff's really messing with me with that title. This pilot program is ready to launch with a couple cautions. We're calling the event Beat the Heat Pop-Up Splash Park Pilot Program. I'll talk to Mr. Venuti later. We have come up with this idea of, instead of turning on the hydrants, there's a lot of fear about turning on the hydrants because it changes the water pressure control. It can cause strain on the hydrants. And there are some traffic concerns. All of our hydrants point into the roads. So instead of doing that, we will be utilizing a fire apparatus instead of the hydrants directly. We did test this out, and it was on the front page of the Finger Lakes Times earlier this week with the Geneva Summer Recreation Program. So that will be going forward. City disposition process of properties. We have received a couple proposals for purchasing city-owned property that is not on the current listing of property that council has allowed us to dispose of. So the property disposition team has reviewed those properties, and they'll be bringing forward a recommendation to council in the coming weeks. I'm almost there. Appointments to the Shade Tree Committee. We have been, thank you to the clerk, we have been cleaning up all of our committees. Shade Tree Committee happens to be a city manager appointment, and there had been a time when some oaths of office were not filed. And so I will be reappointing James Norwalk, Daisy Hoyt, and Charles Rouse to the Shade Tree Committee with terms expiring December 31st of this year, so that once they take their oath of office, will allow them to finish these terms. And then I'll be working with Councilor Brennan, who's the liaison, to fill vacant seats on that. Two last things. The Engaging Local Government Leaders does an annual City Hall Selfie Day. It's a celebration of public service showcasing pride in local government institutions. 2024 is the 9th year of City Hall Selfie Day. This city has participated at least 4 years, I believe. And it's an opportunity for government employees, elected officials, members of the media, and community members to really show off their local municipal buildings on social media using the hashtag City Hall Selfie. If you look up that old City Hall Selfie hashtag, you'll see all sorts of things from dogs in city halls to city halls changed into Barbies to miniature Lego city halls to the cast of Park and Rec getting involved in City Hall Selfie Day. I gave the okay to challenge staff, so the department building, because we counted City Hall as one building, that has 75% of their staff participate in City Hall Selfie Day at the designated time. I will be purchasing lunch for them. So I have heard that the police department is on it and will have 75% participation. So we'll see how that goes. And then finally, the month of July was an extremely challenging month for the city of Geneva. It's a month normally marked by a lot of celebrations, summer events. It was a month marked with loss for many of our city teams. As mentioned earlier, we lost our longtime DPW heavy equipment operator, Frank Quattaro, and soon after, our fire department assistant, Chief Powers. They left our teams with heavy hearts. Both men were exemplary public servants who truly put service above themselves day in and day out, and have been missed throughout this organization. I want to acknowledge they continued to work through their own grief to ensure that our city really marched on, despite being tasked with making the arrangements and working through not just their loss, but the actual physical burials of their colleagues. And so I can't thank our employees enough for all the work they did, from seeing them go to some of the memorials and then right back out to continue the work that means so much to all of them. So thank you to our community for supporting them and supporting each other in that time of loss.
Thank you. Next, we have a resolution, appointment of Kate Ott, RN, MPH, Director of Community Public Health as Local Health Officer for the City of Geneva, presented by our City Manager.
Yes, so this is in retirement. Mary Beers was previously appointed as our local health officer. According to the charter, we must have a local health officer. Years ago, our local health officer was determined to be the county's director of public health. All of the municipalities have done this. The county actually filed this resolution previously to appoint her. We also need to do the same.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Brennan. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next, resolution, withdraw and recommence foreclosure action, presented by our City Comptroller, Stephanie Newcomb.
In November of 2023, myself and our legal at the time started the process for the tax foreclosure action. It's the final step in the tax foreclosure process to, pursuant to Article 11 of the New York State Property Tax Law in Ontario County Court. After the filing, New York State Legislature amended Article 11 of the New York State Property Tax Law in regards to surplus funds. Due to the amendment, the city attorney and I both would like to request to withdraw the pending action and move forward with a new action to clearly outline the steps and ensure compliance with the new legislation. Several council members had questions prior to this, so I just want to reiterate, we are in compliance with the Article 11. What we would like to do is add additional wording to our judgment that we want to move forward with so that we can clearly outline the mechanism for people to claim surplus funds. And so basically it's an additional outline to clarify what the next steps would be if there were surplus funding and from any properties that we foreclosed on that sold at auction.
Need a motion. Councilor Levin, second by Councilor Grimaldi. Discussion. Councilor Levin.
I noticed that our attorney is not here tonight. Are we backsliding on the commitment for the attorney to be here?
No, the attorney is on vacation that
Okay.
was planned prior.
Okay.
Explain that to me, please. So foreclosed house owes $100 in taxes. Foreclosed house gets auctioned for $1,000. The $900 difference is what you want to try to make explicitly clear to the owner that that's the surplus funds.
Correct. So Article 11 outlines that any surplus funding has to go back to the previous owner prior to us foreclosing on the property.
Okay.
And that was the practice of the city of Geneva previously. But what this amendment outlines now is I won't say clearly outlines how they can claim the surplus funding, but it gives an additional outline for how they should be claiming the surplus funding. So the city attorney and I would just like to include what our process is to claim those additional funds on the judgment moving forward.
Thank you. Seems quite clear.
Councilor Grimaldi.
So it's surplus after all our costs and fees.
Correct. Yep. So it's back taxes
It's
and
not just what they owed in taxes, it's the penalties and everything else too.
correct. The amendment only allows for a small additional fee for administration fees, but any additional cost that we incur directly to the property is calculated in prior to us basically establishing what the surplus funds are.
Councilor Petropoulos.
So basically, in a nutshell, the new Article 11 doesn't cost the city anything.
No.
Because I noticed in the resolution, it said, well, we could proceed the old way, but I was confused as to what the difference would be.
So there wouldn't be a difference in our process. It just wouldn't be as clear if we moved forward with our current judgment on how the surplus funding, how somebody would claim the surplus funding.
Right, so this will simply outline in plain English, I guess, so it just makes it easier to understand.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is appointments to boards and commissions, and I believe we have a few. Councilor Gilat.
Go ahead.
Councilor Peeler.
I'd like to put these in a block. These are reappointments. We have reappointments to the Historic Districts Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I'd like to appoint Mary Salati and Victoria Lehman to the Historic Districts Commission. And I'd like to reappoint Jeff Grieco and Kyle Olszewski for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
We have a second. Councilor Gilat seconds it. Any discussion on the reappointments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco? Oh, I'm sorry, he's absent. Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is mayor and council reports. I'm going to start to my right with Councilor Grimaldi.
I have no report. I went to the meeting, but nothing that came up had anything really to do with us.
Okay. Councilor Peeler.
Planning board did not meet this past month. I have no report on the planning board. I do want to have a public thank you to the Geneva BID and all the volunteers and exhibitors for the cruise, for our annual cruise night. I did attend and it was very busy. It was busier than last year's. The weather was perfect. The music was great and the food was hot. And the cars were really cool. I wish I could have a car like any one of those cars. I also want to thank the DPW for all the hard work they've done on the water main breaks. It was crazy last month. Every week I heard of 1 or 2 or 3 popping off at once, and they were always out there working through the night, and it was just amazing. And not only that, but all the debris that came down with the windstorms, they're helping to clear that as well. I do have a question for the city manager about utility poles. And it's kind of like this. The way I understand it is the utility poles are owned by the utilities, but they're on city property, so they actually pay a little bit for like an easement for like per square foot or per pole. They pay taxes on the poles.
Yes, they
So
do.
here's my question. When they leave 2 poles in there, are we getting some double time?
It comes down from the state.
Yes.
The state gives you a value.
Yeah, so the state does a valuation
A
on it.
lot of people don't know that they actually give us money for the
Value higher.
pole footprint.
Yes.
Um,
And as Councilor Grimaldi just said, the new poles will probably value higher than the old poles.
Great.
If not, you've been a lot of 20s when we argue with you. and
Great.
chainsaw.
I just kind of wanted the public to know it's not just a thing where we get raked. Like, we get a little bit of something there. I also have a question for our comptroller. What is the fundamental difference technically between our reserve funding and our fund balance?
Nothing. It's the same
Okay,
thing.
so I have a question.
Mhm.
How do we, I don't recall ever that we passed a budget where automatically we took money out of the fund balance without council approval after the fact. So we've got 500 million coming out of reserve that we, that,
500,000.
or 500,000 that,
Yeah.
that, sorry. I got a 0, I got a decimal point in there.
Controller's
So,
office would come in if we had 500
Hey,
million in reserve.
that's right. So inflation in the last 10 minutes has been crazy. So I don't recall that 500,000 being vetted through as council resolutions over the course of this past year.
So it's reflected in the 2024 budget. If you're looking at the summary pages, they're interfund transfers.
So interfund transfers.
Because it's a fund balance and we're moving it from the fund balance over to general fund, moving it from fund balance over to water fund. It's reflected as an interfund balance, or interfund transfer. But then if you go onto the appendix pages, you'll see it more outlined on the revenue page.
Very good.
For it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I get itchy when I hear that we dip into the fund balance for any reason that's planned. I always thought we dip into the fund balance for unplanned expenses. So if we passed a budget where we
For
No.
one-time expenses is when we're utilizing the fund balance that's planned in our budget. So if we're running a pilot program for 2 years, then we could essentially pull from the fund balance for those 2 years because that's an exception. It's not an ongoing expense.
And we will only do that if the fund balance is above the % capacity that we want it to be.
so we don't get dinged and have to go to fund balance jail.
Right. So
Right.
if we're too high in the surplus, we want to bring this fund balance down.
Correct.
You'll hear us in 2025 budget talk about things like cash for capital and other things because you can use that one-time money to purchase things like equipment instead of bonding or banning for it.
Thank you very much. I'm not a comptroller, but I have a balanced budget in my house. But I did go to the Budget Academy that was offered by our last comptroller, Mr. Adam Blowers, and it was exceptional. And I recall it being not typical and not preferred that we go into the fund balance as a plan.
As long as the fund balance is staying above the minimum thresholds that are recommended and that council is comfortable with, then that's the only time.
I hear you. He just left that part out.
Yeah, okay.
That was not part of his ideology of how we should
I'll
go
add
in.
on to it then.
Yeah, well, I think I
Let's
agree
make
with.
an amendment.
I think I agree
Yeah.
with Adam. So I also want to have a big thank you to the Geneva Night Out, or the National Night Out that went on last night at the Geneva Rec Center. It was a public safety event, and there was really some awesome exhibits, and there was food for kids, and we got to see the Mercy flight land and take off, and that was awesome. And I got to personally dunk the police chief in the dunking booth. That was amazing. And I'm gonna yield the floor.
Councilor Lavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. A more focused on mundane issue is that I do want to bring up for future consideration, and I'll work on exactly what with the city manager staff. But Ward 1 is having a difficult time with, and I think is in a very unsafe condition with between the truck traffic and the parking on both sides of South Main Street, and the crossings that are not fully developed. We're just waiting for the first college kid or community member to get killed out there. So I have started some discussions with with HWS, being transparent with the manager too, that eliminating parking on one side of that, where the overlook is there, and we're discussing which side would be safer, but I think some of these things have to do with road considerations, Route 14, but also the garbage trucks that come through probably 50 or 60 a day when they're coming in both directions and have parking on both sides of that street. It really is extremely dangerous, and we need to do better. So I'd like to put that on the focus and agenda for something to consider going forward. Will not be popular with the professors who live in Ithaca and want to park right outside their office at Trinity Hall, but I think we got to think safety there. It's really, really dangerous. The other issue that's come up again on Ward 1, and I don't want to be a nattering nabob of negativism, but I still get a lot of comments about the aftermath of our assessment and the effects that's going to have on taxes particularly for the high-end homes on South Main Street, but also the other end of town too. I'm hearing a lot about it, and I don't want to put the city manager here on the spot, but I think my question would be, having come through all of our discussions and hearing the budget process going on, if the manager is getting any real direction from us. I did make a motion earlier to keep the levy for this year at 0, and it was voted down by the council, but I haven't heard anything from the rest of the council in terms of a consensus of direction to the manager. There's some discussions in private executive sessions about the negotiations with police and fire, but if I were sitting in the manager's seat, I'm not so sure I would know what this council is actually creating as a priority for this budget that we're hearing so much about. And when I talk to my residents in Ward 1 particularly, they continue to ask me, what are you going to do about that? What are we doing on the tax situation in Geneva? And they're hearing a sort of an opaque quiescence here from the rest of us in real action. The manager may have an answer to that she wants to say.
Well, Council, in one of our last work sessions, we did have this discussion, and the city manager proposed the lowest tax rate in 10 years that was sustainable, and I believe she even repeated that tonight. So I'm not sure if everybody is on board with that, but I'm definitely on board.
Well,
with
that was a tax rate.
Yes,
that's not
correct.
That's not taxes.
I didn't mistake what I said. I said tax rate.
It's meaningless in terms of taxes.
Well, I don't think it's meaningless.
Well, it is. With a 48% increase in your assessments, your rate has to come down drastically.
And not everybody has a 48% increase.
The average is 48.
Understandable.
Right.
So it's going to,
a
lower tax rate will definitely create a buffer to the increase in the assessment. Will it be 1-to-1? Definitely not.
It won't necessarily make a reduction in the levy at all.
No, I don't expect it to.
Well, that's the levy is the taxes. The rate is a artificial construction.
The rate is calculated math-wise with the value of the property that is the taxable.
Right, but you could come down by 30% on your rate this year and still raise the levy by $1 million.
That's correct.
That's not a tax decrease. It's not a buffer.
And nobody, I'm not saying a tax decrease, because it would be nice if all our expenditures decreased also.
So, and that's where I think I don't think we've
That's
given
exactly
her
where we differ.
direction.
So if I may, Mayor. So I did use the direction because during that session afterwards, you had moments where members of council talked about the tax rate and trying to make sure and ensure. And so that's where we talked about that. And I had a majority of council saying that at that time. So we can go back to that. The other thing I just want to correct, it's not an average 48%. That is the change in the total assessed value. But it's not an average. Some people saw increases, some people saw decreases. But it's in total assessed value. It's not an average across the city. So if you saw an increase of 90%, don't think you're the outlier. Other people saw that as well, and some people saw decreases.
I want that in the past, this council and this city has used the rate to say that we've reduced the tax rate. The tax rate does not necessarily result in a reduction in taxes. The levy, the amount of money taken from the people is what the taxes are. And that's what we were talking about with our consultant, of having the beginning of a reduction in our taxes was not the rate. It was the levy.
We can argue about that all night long.
It's not an argue, these are facts.
You've been talking about tax levy, Counselor.
That's the money
You brought
taken
it to
from
the
the tax
Counselor,
payer.
please, you brought it to the table.
Right.
It didn't get the support. You can bring it to the table again, but it didn't get the support.
Right, but I have nothing coming back from the rest of the council as to what direction they want to take. They've said they don't want to take mine, but they haven't given her a direction on taxes.
I must be walking around in circles, because I just talked about the lowest tax rate in 10 years. Is it going to be an increase to the levy? Very possibly.
So you're going to raise taxes. That's what it is. It's not a levy. Don't talk about rate. Talk about, are you going to
The
take more
overall
money?
tax levy will most likely go up, yes. Because
Yeah.
expenditures keep going up unless we find some more revenue or reduce expenditures somehow. It's a simple formula, but it's not a simple task.
Right. Well,
You want the communication coordinator for 90 Gs, but you don't want taxes to
Counselor,
go up.
let's not go back and
How
forth.
do you do that in
Time
one
out,
corner of your
time out,
mouth?
order. All right, Counselor
I'd
Laffin.
be glad
you
to
still have
explain. Yeah, I'll
Well,
be
still
cut
have-
something
able
else is what you
to.
want
No,
to
I'd be able to
That's
explain
the
that.
only way. Cut something else.
I would like the manager to do her job and you do yours, but that's fine.
Order, please.
Other
Counselor, you
than
still have
that-
the floor.
Other than that, things are going well, and I appreciate the work of the council. The manager has been and her staff, very responsive to the constituents in Ward 1 who've had some garbage issues and things like that this term.
Counselor Brennan.
Well, four things. Two reports, one on the HDC, which is rather brief, and Councilor Peeler touched on it. It's in good shape. Ford Weiskettle retired. Jerry Buckley was willing to take over the chairmanship, and I'm glad about that. Tom Burrell is vice chair. Glad about that. They have lots of experience. They've been busy. Most people don't know what's going on with the HDC, and sometimes it doesn't matter either. But, you know, they're always busy, I can tell you that much, because if you drive up and down South Main Street, you do see things. And Jerry's been busy with the building department's been great. They always notify the HDC when they have a building permit in hand. And they've been busy doing that, certain window replacements, little things like that. But they have to be discussed, and they've done that.
Counselor Brennan,
Yes.
just an explanation on the HDC, what it is, because some people get it mixed up with the Historic Society, so.
Okay, well, it's the Historic Districts Commission, and I think it was formed in the late 60s. It's been around for a very long time. Ford Weiskettle was chairman for 25 years, and Jerry took over effectively this calendar year, but only in the last few months. And he's been very busy, and again, I'm glad for that. The Historic Geneva, formerly known as the Geneva Historic Society, will probably always be a subject to confusion. But the HDC is a city commission with its own particular set of bylaws. Is that?
And maybe just to add to it, they are the shepherds or the guard keepers of our historic nature of our buildings, I think is probably one of the critical things, right?
That's correct.
They make sure they draw the line that you keep things up and up when it comes to historic nature.
That's correct. They do their darndest, I can say that much. You'll recall that not long ago, a certain house on Washington Street, 165 Washington Street, was part of the city auctions. That is one of the 17 identified houses of architectural distinction in the bylaws. And so that owner will be getting a call from Jerry Buckley and hoping that they'll keep the slate roof and things like that. The Shade Tree Committee met twice. I met with them only once, but it wasn't a roundtable discussion. They actually went to the Doran Avenue plant and worked on the, oh Lord, I think there's like 120 tree saplings there and that they maintain and would love to get into the ground. And it's hard for them to do that work because they have to coordinate with the DPW. And you might recall that I mentioned Mark Perry earlier. They loved having Mark Perry there, but Mark is now no longer available for funding reasons. And so those trees are still in Doran Avenue and they need a home. So I guess you could say this might be a public announcement that says if you have a public way on your property, then you might contact James Norwalk or the city engineer or director of annuity and let them know that you'd be willing to have that reviewed. But that wasn't really my purpose. I just wanted to say that they've met several times, and they, if I haven't complimented them in public before, I'd like to say so now. They do a wonderful job. Again, most people don't know who they are, but all competent people. They manage, I've said this before, thousands of trees on our city database. They know where all the trees are, what their status is. And even though storms knock them down from time to time, which we can't fix Mother Nature, they've got a plan in action to get some trees back in place. The other two things I'd like to bring up, and one of them is in general about boards, and I'm requesting that this council or allow city manager and the city clerk to get together because we need to do some, I think, back to basics fundamentals on some of the boards. I received a scorching letter from a board member regarding the absence of process, procedure, oath-taking, vetting for qualifications, et cetera. They're very, very disappointed. I think that, I don't know what the status of our zoning board is at the moment, but I think Andy Williams, he resigned about 4 or 5 months ago, and I don't know if he's been replaced, but we need to do some fundamental work, and I'd like to see if we can't dig deeper into that in the future. The last thing, if you don't mind, is and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I want to revisit the subject of the engagement coordinator. I consider that we made a mistake when we declined to hire a city engagement coordinator, because that is something very specifically germane to all of the subjects that everyone is talking about here. It's not just the fact that it was brought up during public comment, but it's been brought up about grant writing, grant receptions, opportunities still to come, the workflow. I don't know if everyone realizes just how hard this city staff works. We talk about the DPW. There's no question that they work very hard. So does the fire department, the police department. This city staff works very hard. Nobody works a 40-hour work week here. There is no such thing. And they are just, I would suggest they're at capacity. And I say that because that's something in Amy's notes here from the last meeting. They're doing their best to keep up with what they have. And if we want to have a city that goes forward, we have to take away the hamstrings. We have to give them, if we talk about giving staff direction, we have to give them the tools to take that direction. It's all one thing to talk about budget, but I think $49,217 is about probably 0.1% of an administrative salary total, where maybe I've understated it, but you would know that. The point is it's small potatoes compared to the big, big picture. And so I would like to introduce the thought that we readdress that subject. Thank you.
Councilor Gilat.
Okay, Police Budget Review Board did not meet this month. I'm sure they'll be at it again next month. They want to get involved. They'll help the chief with the budget, especially with mental health situation, possible position. So I'll update on it next month rather. Side note, Sons of Italy and Prospect Avenue is having their festival Friday and Saturday night. And Mr. Lavin is going to be in the dunk booth. So we should be able to generate a lot of money in that one.
I just found out tonight.
I'm not even Italian.
Okay. BID, they're doing a great job. And a couple of comments I got from people visiting Geneva, friends of mine, et cetera, and a very big critic, my wife. If you drive down Exchange Street, and they used to have a restaurant down there, when you drive down from the thruway coming into town, it's just a magnificent sight. It's beautiful. They kept the flowers up, the hanging flowers. The streets look great. And I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but the city of Geneva is pretty busy this summer. A lot of people, a lot of traffic. I've never seen traffic like this before. I don't think we talk enough about the positive things going on, and we get wrapped up in the daily business of the budget and cuts, which is very important. But yeah, I think we need to really promote our city for what it is too. It's very beautiful. We have a great lakefront. And we're doing things, although they're not moving as fast as we like to. But I mean, I just don't think we talk enough positive things about the city, about our staff, and things we're working on. So just my little soapbox. I'll get off it now. BID Cruising Night was exceptionally well attended this year. They have a program where they can monitor the number of people coming through, and they estimated through this program 8,000 people were in attendance. Everybody did quite well. They did have some issues. They discussed. We met at a meeting this morning, and just reviewing Cruising Night and how we can make it better, kind of thing for next year. First Friday continues to be a huge success to bring people to businesses downtown. In August, wrapped it up together with Garlic Week. It was a week featuring garlic dishes in our local downtown establishments and supporting the glorious Garlic Festival at the lakefront. August events coming up. Geneva Grows native plant and beneficial insect tour, which Kat talked about. Wheels on the Seneca, a classic car show and BID co-sponsored event to benefit local veterans and veteran services. This event started by Pat O'Connor, who runs a car show piece of the Cruising Night. All proceeds go directly to our local veterans. Last year we raised over $2,000 in this event. It features cars from all makes and models, vendors, music, raffles, and concessions, and it's held at the lakefront, I believe. And you might see a celebrity chef there this year. I got conned into it, I think, but anyway. And that's August 25th. Beautification, new planning on Seneca. On Seneca are established so more staff time will be available to weed landscape beds, parking lots, and curbs. The bid power mower broke, but the DPW's help. We have a new used mower and are back up and running. Thank DPW for that. Economic development, time to explore advertising panel on the blue kiosk have been installed and feature things to do in the area to keep people in Geneva for a longer visit. And BID continues to work on the economic development strategy with David West and Gary Ferguson, as well as IDA and the LDC. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Council Petropoulos.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Ward, I first of all would like to also thank BID and DPW for all the hard work they did. On that note, I did have a meeting with BID concerning a few local area issues. For example, that part of Castle Street between Elm Street and Main Street, that is relatively recently developed. There are businesses there, but there are no trash bins there. I brought this up with city management. Apparently, if Mr. Venuti, Director Venuti, was still here, he could answer whether or not they have any in storage. Apparently, they do not. So for the time being, budget time's coming up. Perhaps we can budget for 2 more. I don't know that any are underutilized in town, so we have that issue there, but I do need to address the constituents' concerns. Cruising Night went very well. That's literally on my block, so I have to shout out BID again. Give a thank you to Geneva Police for keeping an orderly evening. The LDC met today. Basically, it wasn't much of a meeting. They're in the process of considering how to, shall we say, fund certain events, and they're going to write a resolution to that effect. We'll know more next month or later this month. In the meantime, on the Family Dollar store, I'm going to be going to Ithaca tomorrow to speak with a food co-op, and if they bite, then I'll hand that off to the LDC, and we'll see where it goes from there. One thing I want to announce is that we are going to have a 3-way town hall meeting with wards 4, 5, and 6 on August 31st at the Geneva Library Reading Room from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's going to be everybody, really anyone can come. You don't have to be in wards 4, 5, and 6. We're going to provide refreshments while they last. And, again, bring your concerns. We'll keep it civil, but bring your concerns, ask questions. The idea is to get to know us. We get to know you. I was reminded that the Scott Bissell Memorial Party on Colt Street will happen Saturday, August 17th. I met quite by coincidence with the residents on Colt Street who are going to be running it. That starts at 2 p.m. Again, all are invited. Let's see. A big one. We had a meeting with FLACRA, which I don't want to say I necessarily initiated, but I called for it because there is a building in Ward 5 that's going to be used as a clinic by FLACRA, and of course the word in the street's one thing. I mentioned it before. What I heard was methadone clinic, EGADS, and all of that. But at this point, I'm optimistic because, like Veterans Outreach of Rochester, where we used to work, they have a plan. And again, I totally support recovering addicts. I definitely like the fact that there is mental health care involved with the whole program, and that it's not just get you shot and get out. There's actually a plan. They do intend to hire security to make sure everything's good. So I'll say cautiously optimistic, but I'm optimistic. I have assurance that they have outreach, which is very important because that's where we need to make that connection, outreach to those who might need the help but may not know where to find it. I also have the cards of the directors of FLACRA in case there are any constituent questions. I will call them if there are any and hopefully get that answered. So that presentation turned out fine at the end. Last but not least, I too attended the night out yesterday for first response, and there were other agencies there. It was just wonderful. It was nice seeing everybody. And I will be at the Geneva Police Department Youth Academy graduation on Monday, which will occur at 5 p.m. at the North Street School Gym, unless that changes, but that's where it's going to be. And I do have to give an advance shout out to these kids who actually went out and did this. This is a big deal. It just tells me that they're out there, they're learning. We'll see what happens. But other than that, things are going pretty well right now.
Councilor Whitfield.
I listened to Councilor Gilat when he said we always talk about the negatives of Geneva City and how we need to talk about how beautiful it is and the things that's happening. But every day there are things that's happening that doesn't make Geneva so beautiful, and those things are being swept up under the rug. So we have to talk about those things aside of Geneva being just beautiful. Along with that, as I stated last meeting, I want to bring it up again for the people that didn't hear. There are some concerns that I have pertaining to discriminatory things towards minorities in the community. And as a NAACP political chair, when these things are being brought to me, I feel that it needs to be spoken about. And as I said before, there will be thorough investigation if it pertains to any any businesses, the city, or anything in the community, because I will no longer stand for those things, and a lot of things need to come to the light. These are the things that we sweep under the rug and not adhere to, I'm here to tell you that I am going to be that person to look into those things. As a follow-up, give you a report that Union Street has calmed down much more. It's gotten a little bit cleaner. I presented the issue. I took care of the issue personally. A few times I went to Union Street to take care of the issue. Now, Burn Dairy has had an issue, and now the people have been told to leave the business, but now they're in front of the library, and this is something that we have to take care of now, because the people that go to the library, and namely the kids, is a big issue, and that's another issue that we will have to tackle, because once it involves the kids, it involves me as well. So I'll be looking into that issue as well, personally, if no one else is going to take care of the situation. Also, there's been a few accidents coming off of Milton Street for people who is not, that doesn't know about the community as well. We do have a sign there that says one way, but we have one sign. So if you're passing that way going down and you don't see that sign, it's on the opposite side of the street, you're not going to know if you're not from the community. And it's caused 2 accidents, I believe, so far this summer. They weren't major, but they're major enough where they cause damage to someone from our community's cars. So I wanted to be proposed that we put a sign or 2 there on both opposite sides so that people can see these signs, so it doesn't cause any accidents, and put it in a position so that you can see it coming up and down that street as well. Other than that, I have no further.
So I just want to shout out to Lady Gramling and Mark Gramling for inviting me to an event that was fantastic down at our Bicentennial Park. It was from the Church of First Love, and they allowed me to speak. But I'm just amazed at the music and the enthusiasm and the love that was shared in the park that day. It was just phenomenal to be part of that event. And there was plenty of food and events going on, too, so that was great. Thanks to staff. I think we're very fortunate. This council is very fortunate to have the depth of staff that we have, and the leadership from the city manager and the department heads to build such great teams. We take it for granted a lot of times that people are out there doing their job, but very often are they above and beyond their current roles. So we appreciate that very much. I'm going to jump on Councilor Gilat's soapbox here just for a minute, because I am extremely proud to be in Geneva. I'm part of Geneva and living in Geneva. You know, just since last meeting, we had the Muscle Man, we had the Bonton Relay, we had the Cruiser Night, we had the Glorious Garlic Festival, and I'm missing some, I guarantee it. But I celebrated my mother's 90th birthday last Sunday, and we had relatives that came in from Fort Lauderdale, Virginia Beach, Indianapolis, Aspen, and just the overall vibe from everybody that came to visit was so positive that Geneva is such a beautiful place to be, and they haven't been here in years. So, you know, you just beam with pride, and for me, just being part of this community is so exceptional. So I want to get on that soapbox, and I want to preach how great Geneva is, because it's a beautiful place to be, live, work, and play. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councilor Levin, second by Councilor Petropoulos. Mary wanted to jump in, but we can't let her yet. She's going to run for office next time. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?